So welcome back to another episode on the BMTA's podcast on maritime careers and training. And today we are going to be exploring maritime careers and pathways into the industry in regards to careers and job roles. So when we think about maritime careers, many people sort of picture working on board ships, but what you need to be aware of is there's much more in terms of going to sea. There's also a lot of shoreside careers. So within this podcast, we're going to be looking at both aspects. And today I have a special guest, Sam Samuels, with me. Sam, would you like to just briefly introduce yourself for the recording and for all of the people listening?
Right. Hi, Owen. Sam Samuels, as Owen said. I joined the Royal Navy when I was 16, carried out a 4-year craft apprenticeship, and then spent the next sort of 27 years working within the Royal Navy, doing job as a marine engineering, getting all the way to the equivalent of the chief engineer or a marine engineering officer. Since coming ashore, I've worked. I use my skills as a facilitator, working in a boarding school, and so it just shows some diversity of what can happen when you've got a skill set. And then after several years in there, I came back into the maritime industry, working shoreside again, this time working with the Warsash Maritime School, starting off in the workshops as a technician, teaching fitting and turning and various hand skills, moving on to managing the workshop, and now finally for the last 7 or 8 years, I've been a senior lecturer. So I'm involved heavily in the mechanical side of things, but also I understand the career progression.
Brilliant. So within this episode, we're going to look at both shoreside pathways and seagoing pathways. So the six primary roles we're going to look at in terms of working shoreside on land: marine engineer, marine electrician, shipwright or boat builder, naval architect, surveyor and superintendent, with the last two sort of being a merger between seagoing and shoreside. So in regards to marine engineers, marine engineers, their primary role is the maintenance and upkeep of machinery, both within vessels in terms of main engines, auxiliary systems, ancillary systems. So they're really required to understand engines, the propulsion systems, pumps, fuel systems, and their expertise is absolutely vital. And this is in lots of different avenues, really. You can be in shipyards, you could be in production of vessels, maintenance of vessels. It could be in the design office, whatever it might be. So they're very much sort of looking at the overseeing of building of new engines, helping to upgrade ships to be a lot more greener with electric propulsion coming in, and finding alternative methods of reducing pollution. They support fleets by troubleshooting mechanical problems. And these days, a lot of these systems, people actually sit in the office, log into a computer, and then they're accessing all the data on board that ship from their laptop, and they have that ability to problem solve, restart equipment, rebuild equipment in terms of the mapping and the diagnostics. It's quite a fascinating way to go. So in terms of marine engineers, again, a lot of stuff on winterization and the process of getting vessels, smaller craft ready for the winter. They will do things such as installations, overhauls, retrofits, lots of different things. It's quite a forward-facing or a customer-facing role, depending on the sort of business you're working for. So you could work just installing engines and ancillary equipments for new boat productions. But again, if you're working for smaller overhaul companies or perhaps even self-employed as your own, you'll be taking on a wide range of work. So how would you get into as a shore-based marine engineer? I think the primary route is probably apprenticeships.
Yep.
I think that's the key one. You can go through the degree routes at a higher level, but a lot of what we see is apprenticeships in shipyards and building up your experience there. I think it's definitely a role, even shoreside, and you will hear similar for the seagoing. If you love problem solving, if you love working with machinery and seeing how things work, fitting together, using your hands, this is a real strong career path. And the beauty of this one in particular is the transferable skills. So we do see a lot of motor mechanics come into the trade and vice versa, machinists, fitters, turners, who are opening up their portfolio, and they come into marine engineering. And with shipping moving towards more sustainable, again, we're going to be seeing a lot more of the marine engineers having experience with the likes of LNG, hybrid systems, battery systems, electric propulsion, and so forth. What are your thoughts on shoreside marine engineers, Sam?
Yeah, it's a challenging world. You've got to get the right career path. You've got to get the right employer. But yeah, you've got a skill set which you can build on. You also have the opportunity to specialize in certain types of craft. There's many manufacturers who just want you as a specialist. We have many ex cadets who go and work shoreside. And again, some of the local companies, people like PB Asher, who do overhauls and what have you, they're crying out for engineers, and they want maritime. They need the maritime process. And so, yeah, shoreside, there's a huge wealth. Doesn't mean you have to travel around the world. But for sometimes the 9 till 5 can be a bit demeaning, and they look for a little bit more excitement, which is where I think it leads them onto other avenues.
Yeah, so moving on, we've got marine electrical, marine electricians. So again, modern ships these days are like floating power plants. So they depend on their electrical systems for everything from navigation to life support of the vessel itself. Okay, so marine electricians keep these systems safe and reliable. And very much similar to the marine engineers in terms of shoreside positions. This can be from new installations, so it can be fitting the main supply cables, it can be running cables through the vessel, it could be installing the generation system, the distribution system, all of these aspects, to maintaining them, to servicing them, to ensuring everything's running, to overhauling motors, for doing mega testing, all of these types of terminology that those who are of interest will explore. And it can even go down to fault finding, replacement parts, and so forth. Again, lots of different places to work. You can work in ports, you can do ship repair yards, you can be on installations, or again, self-employed, going around inland waterways all over the country. Again, location isn't a boundary with these roles. They might be doing things sort of installing and maintaining lighting, radars, navigation systems, or automation equipment. And again, moving over to new technology in regards to propulsion, electric propulsion is going to be huge moving forward as we look to reduce emissions internationally. So how can we get into a marine electrician? So there's sort of two or three main routes here. The classic is apprenticeship again, so doing a time-served apprenticeship with a company, working with the college and work experience with an employee. However, what we do see is we see a huge number of people who have qualified in the domestic electrical trade, and again, diversifying their skills, they can come along and do something such as the BMEA, BMET, and MEI programs, or more recently, joining the BMTA's Marine Electrical Skills Bootcamp, where we look to marinize those skill sets, and in 62.5 hours of training in evenings and weekends. And again, that availability of education, particularly with the marine courses, which you'll hear more about on our next episode, is access to those courses can be difficult more nationally, with the brunt of marine courses either being nautical colleges or coastal sorts of colleges on the south coast and the east coast. So something like our Marine Electrical Skills Bootcamp is a brilliant way for those who have got pre-existing skill sets in other avenues who want to diversify into the marine electrical trade. And from there, you can gain a lot of experience. You can become a senior technician and even manage projects as a marine electrician. But again, why would you get into this this pathway? So again, if you're hands-on working, you like to solve a lot of technical problems, okay? But I hate to admit it, as a marine engineer myself by trade, but the marine electrical is a lot more technical. There's a lot of hidden dangers, hidden fault finding, and it can be quite interesting. And it's very good if you want to stay on top of cutting-edge systems like smart monitoring, automation, electrical principles, and again, a lot more of that remote monitoring of bits and bobs. It could be a great fit for you. What are your thoughts, Sam? Maria?
Yeah, I appreciate you look at the modern world. We're looking towards autonomous shipping. Even something as simple as drones. which I can see playing a major part in the industry later on, even if it's only for observation. And that requires the electrical expertise. It requires people who've got a mindset, who understand the environment, and understand the pressures that are being put on people. So I think the electrician route, shoreside, is certainly a valuable one, and I think it's an area which is going to grow. You only have to look in the local paper or on job adverts. The one thing that people are crying out for constantly is decent marine electricians, even to the point they're crying out for people to be lecturers in it, because it's such a growing field. So yeah, if you're trying to future-proof your career, certainly the electrician is a route to go.
Okay, now we're going to move on to shipwrights and boat builders. So it's probably one of the oldest and most creative maritime roles, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
Shipwrights design, build, and repair vessels. While wooden ships are part of tradition, today shipwrights often work with steel, aluminium, or advanced composites. And again, it's that what I find really satisfying and interesting is the context of which the materials. So understanding why we pick that material, to what we're trying to achieve, and what we're trying to achieve to making it buoyant, and thinking about stability and so forth. And it's quite interesting to see. You've seen people originally, like we said, use wood, then they moved to steels, but then in the process of trying to make vessels lighter, faster, you then see composites. And then I've seen a move back to aluminium due to pleasure craft getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and all of the stresses and strains and the mechanical properties. So as a shipwright boat builder, you'll be involved with building luxury yachts, repairing fishing boats, building and repairing pleasure crafts, even down to inland waterway with barges and canal vessels. Or you might work with heritage ship restoration. So the Pioneers Trust in Essex, again, they're one of the only training sites in the country who actually offer the heritage repair and restoration apprenticeship. So it's certainly a mix of craftsmanship and engineering, particularly the shipwright sort of side of things. So most people join this through apprenticeships or full-time vocational training, learning carpentry, welding, and marine construction. They get a broad set of skill sets. And the shipwrights event, the shipwrights conference, is held annually. And again, that's always really interesting to go down and listen to their special guests and talks. And what's going on in the industry. So if you enjoy hands-on craftsmanship and you want the satisfaction of seeing a vessel take shape before your eyes, this career, I'm sure, is very, very rewarding.
Yeah, and there's again many opportunities. If you've got the skill set of working in wood or working with aluminium, steel, these are skills which are sadly lacking in many areas. So again, you've got the adaptability to take it outside the industry and convert it to other skills that you or other industries that may be crying out for it. And certainly with the way of composites moving, again, if you look at shipyards, they're crying out for people with expertise, even just down to surveying with knowledge of what's going on with composites. It's a fine skill set, and you'll see people crying out for those people.
Yeah, I was speaking to a local company down in Portsmouth, Gosport sort of area, and they were saying to me, marine engineering welders or shipwright boat builders in aluminium welding are like gold dust.
Yeah.
And that they're literally, their words were, they're being held over a barrel just on the finances of people involved, because there's too much work and not have people completing it. So the next sort of steps we're going to look at is naval architects. So naval architects are the designers of the ships and maritime structures. They're primarily responsible for vessel shape, stability, safety, and efficiency. So they work in ship design firms, classification societies, or even sort of government departments. Some design ferries, tankers. It might be you're working on super yachts, even down to, again, canal vessels, or the small. We see a lot in renewables, actually, sustainable vessels, and looking at those type of aspects. So others even starting to look at autonomous shipping as that comes into effect more rapidly. So the pathway, however, usually requires a university degree in naval architecture or marine engineering with a crossover. It's a very technical career, but also a creative one. So you'll be solving a lot of complex problems while designing something that floats, moves, and carries people or cargo safely. So this is definitely for anyone who's interested in design, engineering, and innovation. This is one of those careers that you can get really excited about when you're creating potentially something new, or even just looking at something and making it better and improving the position it's already in.
But if you recall, Owen, we had a colleague who'd started off in education and then he came into the naval arc business. He learnt his trade, he got his degree. He worked for the MOD doing several projects. Then he came to us to add to our teaching portfolio, and he's now moved on. And I think you'll find that he's working with BAE, working on submarine projects. So someone who came to the industry slightly later used his academic background to shoehorn himself into a far more challenging career. And he admits himself he prefers the naval arc to standing in front of the classroom.
Yeah, I think he's actually in a senior role there as well. I think he's a project team leader. Yep. So again, the opportunities are open doors. Moving on, this is where the next two roles sort of move into both seagoing and shoreside. So initially we've got surveyors. So surveyors roles are primarily there to inspect ships and equipment to make sure that they meet international and national standards in terms of safety and environmental considerations. So they're almost like the quality controllers of the maritime world. So they often work for organisations called classification society, such as DMV and Lloyd's Registry. And they also often work for what we call the P&I clubs and insurance companies. So they might board different ships every week, checking everything from hull strength to electrical systems to cargo to life-saving appliances to the machinery. So they get involved a lot with inspecting vessels. Now that can be through the MCA, it could be port state inspections, whatever it might be that they're well sought after, and it's quite a high level role and a lot of responsibility. So typically, to become a surveyor, you come from an engineering or seafaring background, or a specialist naval arc or shipwright or marine engineer. Okay, but newcomers with a strong technical training in marine engineering or naval architecture can also enter this field. And I'm aware that Lloyd's Registry do offer surveyor training courses online that you can look at and get involved with. So there are entry routes there. So it's certainly a role for people who like detail, who enjoy the responsibility, and it's not for everyone, and variety, but also those who are open to a bit of travel. So this could be you inspecting a container ship one day and a yacht the next day, and you might be all over the world traveling and working on behalf of various societies and companies.
And just building on from it, as you say, you've got people who can travel. You can break out into your own world and then become a consultant. Again, many people, certainly if you're purchasing vessels, they need a surveyor to cast an eye over it. It's not like buying a car where you kick the tyres. Someone really needs to put the casting eye over it. And the other area that it can develop into is marine accident investigation, in the fact that if someone's making an insurance claim on perhaps a fire on an engine, they use people's expertise to break that down. So again, it's an industry or an area which can grow as little or as much as you so desire.
And finally, in terms of shoreside, before we Sammy take over and look at the seagoing sort of side of things, we have a superintendent. So superintendents are managers or oversee the ships from shore. They're responsible for making sure the vessels are maintained, inspected, and operating efficiently. So they're almost like the project managers of the shipping world. So they work for the shipping companies handling fleets of vessels. Their day-to-day might be including organising a dry dock, scheduling repairs, or ensuring compliance with the international regulations. So again, it's one of those roles where you typically are transferring from seagoing and coming shoreside. And again, we'll have an episode on coming from seagoing roles to shoreside in the future. But just early doors, it's definitely something to think about if you're looking long-term at what your career planning is going to be. So the role often suits people with strong organisation skills, and many superintendents are experienced engineers or captains, but companies are looking for new talent with engineering management or logistics backgrounds. So I think they're starting to realise that they need to bring in a different demographic of people, both in terms of background, diversity, and age.
Well, just to give some credibility to that, we've got a colleague, both his offspring came into the Merchant Navy as deck officers, and now one of them is working for one of the big companies as a superintendent. So he's using his managerial logistics ability to fit into that role.
And it is a demanding role. There's a lot of pressure. You have to stay calm under that pressure, but also it can be very rewarding. At the end of the day, you're responsible for ships worth millions and crew dependent on you to sort of keep us afloat. Excuse the pun. So there's six. Well, I think they're exciting shoreside careers: marine engineers, marine electricians, shipwrights or boat builders, naval architects, surveyors, and superintendents. And each offers a very different pathway in the maritime industry. So some are very hands-on, some are very highly technical, and others focus on a management. But all of those are essential in terms of keeping ships safe, being innovative, being hands-on, and keep driving the system forward. So we'll move over to you, Sam, in terms of sort of leading this part, seagoing career pathways.
So we're going to look at several areas. We'll start off with the one that obviously suits me and you, Owen, because we are from that background where we talk about the marine engineering officer. We talk a lot about engines, we talk about propulsion, but I think you've got to remember this role on board a vessel is basically like running a small village. Everything that you can think of, from using the toilet to producing fresh water, to cooking food, to refrigerating your stuff within the kitchen, or galley as we like to refer to it on sea. Even down to looking after the propulsion system is part of it, but the drivetrain and the hull all come into it. And as a marine engineer, you are then responsible also for firefighting and survival, etc., etc. We work on the premise we plan for the worst and we hope for the best. So it is an exciting career pathway. It offers you variety. As I said, I often refer to people and say, you could go and work in a garage. You're probably very skillful on working on one area, but when you go and work as a marine engineer, you're expected to be a jack of all trades and someone who's prepared to turn the hands to everything. As for the career pathway, well, there are very many ways to come into it. We'll start with the simplest one, which is to conduct a 3-year cadetship. Again, it can depend on your academic qualifications, but it doesn't really matter. We'll go in at the HND level all the way through to the bachelor's level, but ultimately you will all receive a certificate of competency. And as such, it gives everybody a chance to develop and to grow and move on. Moving on up the management chain once you've got that qualification, if you so desire, it can be quite swift. Which just means completing sea time. That's not just being on a vessel, but that's actually underway with the vessel. Sometimes as little as 12 months will get you so that you can requalify again. So although we say it's only 12 months at sea, that could actually take you 2 or 3 years, depending on how you live. So why does it matter? Well, every ship's going to rely on its chief engineer and its engineering team. And as Owen alluded to earlier, the green propulsion systems are coming out there, the drive for sustainability and the impact on the environment are all falling on the marine engineer officers and their team. And like Owen said, there are people sitting shoreside who will be tweaking the engines to adjust sulfur limits, which is where you can see the crossover between the two parts. And you came through on a cadet program, did you not, Owen?
Yeah, so actually back at Orsay Maritime Academy as was then, and that was 2011 to 2014. So going full circle and having worked as a lecturer at Orsay Maritime School, it is now also it's going full circle. So we know a lot about that route. We know a lot about the shoreside pathways, and again that progression on board ship from you might join as a junior engineer or 4th engineer, 3rd engineer, then as you said, doing your promotions, your tickets to get 2nd engineer, and then ultimately chief engineer.
So moving on from the engineering, just to give you some diversity, we'll talk about the deck officer. Now, we sort of joke about the fact the deck officer, all they do is look out the window all day long. And in simple terms, it's probably what they do, although these days they tend to look at computer screens. But they're not just responsible for navigation and moving ships from A to B. They have a huge responsibility for cargo operations, and that cargo operation could be liquid, bulk cargo, grain, even down to passengers. If you imagine that on a cruise ship, your cargo is passengers. So safety and crew management are skill sets that you will learn. And as part of it, it's primarily why the master of the vessel is a deck officer, because they have the wider and broader leadership training that goes with it. So if you're not quite so much hands-on, but you're more of a manager, more of a logistical type of person, the deck officer route is a direction to go. It does mean that you'll spend time on the bridge. It does mean that you'll plan routes. You'll have to learn about weather, and you'll have to learn about stability on a ship's vessel. But all exciting, all variety. It's not just a case of just sitting at the wheel every day and driving down the road. And again, much the same, we'll talk about it. There are various options, but probably the simplest route to get in onto this area is to come in as a deck cadet. Very similar to the engineering cadet, HND foundation, bachelor's course at the end of it. But again, all working around sea time and qualifications at whichever college you choose to go. Remembering that there are alternatives for people who already have degrees, both as engineers and degrees with the attributes that would suit them to go into the deck. So there is a shortcut route to get there. But again, these are well signposted by the Maritime Coast Guard Agency because they direct everybody in which routes we're to go. And then, whilst we're still talking about hands-on, the people with the magic, the Marine Electrical Technical Officers, these are the specialists. They work on the electrical systems, everything that sits on the bridge. Whilst the bridge are very good at operating it, what goes on behind the back of them comes down to the Electrical Technical Officer. They're the higher level thinkers when it comes to electronics and electrical systems, working with both power generation. Again, remember, in today's modern world, we're talking of high voltage, navigation system, complex radar, communication. And probably the big thing that we often forget about is the fact that all of this stuff is joined together with a computer and computerized control systems. The reason we can walk out of machinery spaces and leave them locked up for 7 to 10 hours at any time is because we have a very complex surveillance system, which the electrical technical officer will be heavily involved in sorting out. So these skill sets are brilliant in that respect. And although there isn't the same route to get to chief engineer, there are senior roles as an electrical technical officer, and their roles are well sought after. It's certainly in the small vessel world with super yachts, where they are so much more reliant on their communications and their entertainment systems. But yeah, the ETO can move ashore and again take on these roles that we talked about earlier of being a superintendent or even a surveyor. None of this works without the people behind the scenes, commonly called the ratings. Again, not quite so easy to get in on a rating route in the UK. There are companies which do provide basic training or apprenticeships. You have an apprenticeship, you can actually move into it and you can get your hands dirty on the tools. If you want to move on up, then there are avenues which will take you through and will lead you into a cadetship. We often have a lot of people coming from overseas who have done a lot of sea time, have got themselves academically clued up, and then they just come through and do a very quick transfer to get in to be at least a third engineer and then plan to move forward. But again, you've got to shop around for this, really. It's not just operating on engines. It is actually working perhaps on deck as a deckhand, even down to something as simple as cleaning. But it will get you into the industry and people will see you and they will offer you opportunities. We often talk about people doing the pier walk or the jetty walk. If you're interested in it and you live near to a marina, sometimes just walking down, people advertise for a deckhand, but there are lots of employment agencies out there looking for just someone interested to get into the industry. And then the exciting one, the hospitality. Again, primarily this will be guided by employers who will reach out to the various recruitment agencies. But if you've got the background, whether it be something as simple as housekeeping, within the maritime world, that becomes very complex. Not only are you a housekeeper, but you're also a supervisor of personnel on board a vessel. And so they're well sought after. So if you've got a skill which you're doing in the sort of shoreside world, trust me, it's probably wanted in the maritime world as well. So again, I think you'll agree, Owen, it's worth going around and looking at agents and seeing what's out there to try and get into it, certainly from entertainment as well.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of skill sets there, and a lot of a lot of people I speak to, they do it just to travel the world. So I've got quite a few friends who've come out and they've qualified in early years, so and sort of looking after kids, to drama, to food, etc. And a lot of them, they jump onto the sea, going onto cruise ships and even super yachts and bits and bobs like that, just to get away, travel, see the world while they're young, have a blast, and then they come back shoreside and progress further. So it's certainly an option. Again, it's the attractiveness of the potential tax-free implications of being away from sea in terms of income. It's also the ability to travel the world, and a lot of people, they go into it to break into the trade, to get that first level of experience and build up the skill set there before looking elsewhere and coming shoreside with that experience on the CV and then driving their careers forward.
And then finally, there is something for everybody. I think one of the areas that we perhaps forget about, perhaps medical staff. Ships need medical doctors, they need medical nurses, they need people who can provide a service from healthcare. That's readily looked after. Ships require that at all times. Chefs, whether or not you want to be just a bog standard, produce 3 meals a day, or you want to go on to be a cordon bleu chef. Again, the world is out there. A lot of colleges are training people to go to sea as chefs and train you. It's a tough environment. It's not an easy gig, so to speak. But again, it can be rewarding because you've got the variety. And even something as simple as security. People who think, even down to people I know who've been ex-military, Royal Marines, even policemen or even firefighters who come out, they have the mindset, they have the control, they have the management. And again, if you fancy something a little bit different, there are lots of recruitment agencies out there looking for people to act as a role of security. And it's interesting. You get to see different parts of the world, and also you have to learn a global world set, because vessels around the world all have to operate in the same manner. So there is an awful lot of opportunities from even the support staff. So to sort of conclude, we've got 6 essential roles: the marine engineering officer, the deck officer, the electrical technical officer, ratings, hospitality, and support. And each one has a different way to start your journey at sea. If you're not technical or hands-on, there is something for you down there. There is something out there for you to try and get your fingers involved in, and it can provide you great opportunity. And if you've ever thought about a career in shipping, it's more than just moving cargo around. It is about the teamwork, the adventure, the travel, being part of a global industry that keeps the world connected, and it breaks a 9 till 5. Anything that gives you a little bit of variety. Certainly, if you're younger and you're looking to live life a little bit, I strongly recommend having a look at life at sea in any of these skill sets.
So wrapping up this episode, we've gone over 12 sort of career paths, six ashore, 6 seagoing, just to give people an insight into the maritime world and to give that open perspective of the different avenues. What I would say is, although we've covered 12 today, there's way more than that. We've missed travel and logistics. We've missed port and state control. We haven't talked about things like the ports themselves, catering internally, the stevedores, etc., etc. There's a huge quantity that we just can't cover everything in half an hour. So what I would say is, again, go onto the BMTA website, have a look at our careers section if you want more information on the different pathways. We've also got a section on education pathways, which we'll be doing on the next episode, talking about the different education routes. Have a look at the BMTA's free programs, training programs on employability, personal development, and health and well-being. But again, if it just gives you an insight and you sit there and think, I'm excited about this industry, go away and have a little Google about all the other roles if one of these don't suit you, because there is masses. We've just touched the surface, even down to water sports, down to diving, underwater welding, you name it. There's a huge translators yet, so international insurance and things like that we haven't covered in detail. But hopefully you've enjoyed this episode, and with all these episodes we say, if you have enjoyed it and you wish to donate a small amount of money, anything you can afford, to our charity of the year, please do just head down to the bottom of the podcast page where you can press the donate button to find more information about providing any small amount you can to our charity of the year, and help others who aren't as fortunate as some of those listening to us. So we bring this episode to the close, and thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the future.